Why are the Ten Commandments a little different in Deuteronomy 5 from Exodus 20? Now, first off, in Judaism, we call them the Aseret Diborot, or the 10 words, literally, because the first commandment's really not a commandment, it's a word in Judaism in the way we number the 10 commandments. The first one is, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. So that's not a commandment, but all right. We'll call them commandments in English because that's how most people know them in English. Okay, let's first, I want to focus on the fourth commandment today. And if you look in Exodus 28, this is Parashat Yitro, a past parasha in the book of Exodus, where it says, remember the day of Shabbat to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Shabbat of the Lord your God. You shall not do any work, you, your son or daughter, your male or female slave, or your cattle, the stranger is within your settlements. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth and sea and all that's in them, and he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the day of Shabbat and sanctified it. I highlighted in red the things that are different in Parashat Yitro from the things that are different in Parashat Et Hanan. At the time I'm giving this talk, it's the week of Parashat Vet Hanan. So this is the fourth commandment in the book of Deuteronomy, where the 10 commandments are repeated. So let's take a look here. Keep the day of Shabbat to keep it holy versus remember the day of Shabbat in Exodus 20. And notice here, we were told in Exodus, you shall not do any work, you, your son or daughter, your male or female slave, your cattle, the strangers in your settlements. And in Deuteronomy, we have the addition, your male, your female slave, your ox or your donkey, or any of your cattle, or the stranger in your settlements. And then look at this. In Exodus, we're given, for in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth and sea and all that's in them. And he rested the seventh day, right? I've already read this. It's highlighted in red. In red, I highlighted the new part in Deuteronomy, which is different. Now, the question is, why is this different? Now, as I pointed out in the introduction to Deuteronomy, Deuteronomy is a renewal of the covenant from Sinai that was made in the plains of Moab. The previous generation of Israel has come out of bondage in Egypt, but that was 40 years ago. Now we're getting ready to enter the promised land. We have already been given the covenant at Sinai, but now Moshe is going over everything again before we enter. But whenever he retells the giving of the commandments, there are now some differences. The rabbis are united in that Deuteronomy does not replace the laws from Sinai, but it extends them. Deuteronomy assumes the reader or hearer knows the 10 commandments from Exodus, and so it builds on that. The first difference we notice is that Exodus says, remember, versus Deuteronomy, keep. Remembering a holy day is a way to memorialize it, while keeping is a general term for observing a holy day. But in rabbinic tradition, remembering Shabbat refers to all the positive things we do to observe Shabbat, such as lighting Shabbat candles, doing Kiddush, which is a ceremony usually done over a glass of wine or grape juice, where a special blessing is chanted. We sing Zemirot over the Shabbat meal, etc. A number of things like this, special Shabbat prayers and so on. Whereas keeping Shabbat in Deuteronomy, keeping Shabbat refers to the negative things we don't do on Shabbat, namely any of the 39 prohibited labors that were involved in the construction of the tabernacle. Now that the Israelites have 40 years' experience with the tabernacle in the wilderness, it makes sense to emphasize the prohibitions of Shabbat. But let's continue. Exodus 20:11 gives the original reason for Shabbat that ties it into God's creation of the world in 6 days, which goes back to Genesis 2, the first 3 verses. So right here ties into creation, whereas in Deuteronomy assumes that the Shabbat command is built on creation, but it doesn't repeat it, but it replaces that with, remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God freed you from there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore, the Lord your God has commanded you to keep the day of Shabbat. So, in doing this, the covenant on the plains of Moab is emphasizing the freedom that we have from slavery to Pharaoh is the reason we need to keep Shabbat. Because we remember the slavery that we were in under Pharaoh, we must observe Shabbat and free all of our household to keep Shabbat as well, including our animals. Note that Deuteronomy adds your ox or your donkey specifically. Of course, in Judaism, we don't believe that the nations are required to keep Shabbat, but it doesn't mean you can't learn from the Torah on this matter. Shabbat is a picture of the world to come, where it will all be Shabbat for us. May we all merit the world to come. Now, in the coming lessons, we will explore more of the differences between the covenant on the plains of Moab with the covenant at Mount Sinai, and see what Hashem is telling us through his Torah. If you would like to be able to read the Torah in Hebrew, I have courses on Biblical Hebrew available through a membership in Institute for Torah and Semitic Languages, or ITSL for short, which are the same classes I've been teaching in higher education for several decades, costing thousands. They are here offered for a membership fee of $25 a month. Click on the button below for a 2-week free trial in ITSL. And yes, if you like these lessons that I give, please like and subscribe and comment, because it helps the algorithms. May Hashem richly bless you in your study of his Torah. All the best.